From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Beres here on a Tuesday. We have a good show on tap for you. We're going to open up the phone lines as always, and we're going to talk today legal matters, specifically malpractice. The Kelly firm is here. Actually, it's just one guy right now that's here, and that would be Clint Kelly, malpractice attorney here in town. Nick. Well-known malpractice attorney. Not a ton of you around anymore because of the tort law reforms and how everything works. Are there a lot of malpractice attorneys?
No.
Didn't think so. Why is that?
Well, first of all, because of that. Okay. Secondly, because they're very expensive cases, and so there are very few firms that can afford to take them. There is a board certification process. I am board certified in medical malpractice law. There are very few of those as well. But I think in particular, it's there just aren't that many trial lawyers. Nick, a lot of cases aren't going to jury trials anymore, so some of us have peeled off and gone into commercial matters and other types of cases. But I stick with this because I enjoy it.
Yeah, you enjoy it. It's a way to really help people. And boy, he's told me some just cases that will curl your hair, you know, when you hear how it plays out. Some things that happen. And anyway, real quick, the number's on the screen, 737-7587. If you want to join in the conversation, the key on this again is if you have a question or comment, malpractice is whether or not you feel you've been wronged in some way by a hospital for a treatment or a doctor. And again, Clint, I always like to lay this out for our viewers so they understand what a malpractice case basically entails. How do you know if you might have one? Obviously to call you, but what are the things that make a case again?
Three key components. Yeah. First, there needs to be some negligent act, what we call a violation of the standard of care that applies to all doctors, basic care.
Basic standard.
If you give below basic care, that's negligence. Secondly, that negligence must have caused an injury. There must be a direct line between the negligent act and the actual injury that was sustained by the patient. Probably the most important element, Nick, is the value of the damages. The damages must be substantial, significant, and they must be apparent. Now, you don't want hidden damages because we do have caps now in Tennessee that limit a lot of cases going forward simply because they're not economically viable. It costs too much to pursue them. But cases where people have serious loss earnings, you know, major medical expenses, loss of limb, loss of organs, paralysis, those types of cases, juries are more likely to, for lack of a better term, be fair in those cases than in other cases where they see somebody with temporary damages and just say, you know, you move on.
Well, and you've told me in the past you've had clients or prospective clients come through your door where you've acknowledged, yes, you've been wronged, but because of the nature, fortunately, knock on wood, and I guess this is a good thing, they weren't seriously harmed, even though the hospital did do something wrong and made a mistake. Since there were no real damages, the person recovered and was going to be okay. It's just not worth going through the lawsuit because you're not going to get much money.
True, and what I also tell us, you're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
You know, you'd much rather have your health than have to file a malpractice lawsuit for damages. So those people are lucky, and I do have to have that conversation regularly with people. And some of them it's difficult to understand because it's personal. All these cases, it's personal to the doctors, it's personal to the patients. And when these patients have been wronged, they want some remedy. They want their day in court. And I have to tell them until the laws are changed, many of those patients, most of those patients are going to fall through the cracks and never see the light of a courtroom.
Well, we should say one reason he likes to come on this program, you know, to get the word out so people understand these things. And obviously you're in a business yourself, but last time you were on, there was actually someone who called in that may develop into a case.
It is a case.
It is a case.
No question about it.
And as I recall on the show, he detailed that what did they do? They accidentally...
Well, there wasn't any accident to it.
See?
That was the problem.
All right.
He came in with an injury on his arm that was supposed to be sewed up, and some assistant to a physician grabbed a bottle of furniture disinfectant and just sprayed it all inside his wound.
Thinking it was
antiseptic that you'd use on skin. This stuff you do not use on skin. As a matter of fact, if you get it even on your clothes, you got to take your clothes off and bleach them.
That is stunning that a bottle of that, I can understand how maybe he would accidentally grab some saline or a water bottle and spray it that isn't what should be used there, but is not harmful. What on earth is furniture spray doing anywhere near an OR or an examination room?
Well, these are the types of things that happen, Nick. This is
just a no-brainer.
Well, it's why you have negligence cases, because people don't follow safety rules. I'm sure there is a rule at that hospital that you put up all cleaning supplies. And then when it doesn't happen, and some doctor or a nurse grabs and starts spraying it, thinking that that is, in fact, the antiseptic for skin, that's how those types of things happen.
And he suffered.
Yeah, he got burned. He had to go to the burn unit because of it. They had to open his stitches back up, clean it back out, sew it back up, and then send him to the burn unit because he got second, third degree burns and blisters all up and down his arm. And he's going to have a scar the rest of his life from it.
Yeah.
And you know, and the guy, before he left the hospital, he grabbed the bottle and took it home with him to make sure he had proof, because he didn't know if anybody would believe him. Now, it is in the medical records, but...
Does he have it? Is it part of the evidence?
Yes. This tall, looks like a big bottle of Windex.
Not a bad case, my friend.
No, it's not.
All right, so it comes through, and that's something Clint's going to help him with.
But you were asking, how do people know whether they have a classic example? That guy knew as soon as this happened, he said, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And, you know, immediately called and got an opinion from, you know, called us on the show and then got an opinion, and he's got a case. So that's that, and you just kind of know in your gut when you've been wrong.
Well, and real important here is we're going to get to the phone calls. We have some coming in now. Do call if you suspect, 737-7587. If for no other reason, this guy who called, the key was he called within a 1-year window.
Yes, he did.
Let's just say he suspected, he goes, yeah, I'll get around to it, I'll get around to it. And a year passes, and he calls you, and you go, hey, sounds like a good case. When did it happen? Oh, over a year ago.
Sorry.
The statute of limitations.
And that's, I hope everyone remembers that that is a key law in Tennessee that must always be appreciated if you potentially have a case, is you've got to file your lawsuit or give notice to the physician or hospital at least within 1 year from the date that you were injured or the date that you discover your injury, or your claim is barred.
Gotcha. All right, let's take a call before we take our first break. But the lines are open. You know it gets busier later in the show. But, hey, it doesn't hurt to call and inquire. Let's start off with Tracy. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to find out what can you do about, I'm going to call it simple negligence that doesn't rise to the level of a malpractice suit, because you just mentioned how it has to be substantial monies involved or it wouldn't be worth your while. But if a doctor has been negligent in the past, and say you ended up having to go to emergency, you recovered, but now the doctor is seeming to engage in the similar behavior where they're not treating, say, infections that they find. What can you do?
Yeah. Okay, but and a good question. Sometimes if a wrong's done, it's not to the level where you can get the monies and bring in an attorney. What is that, reporting to the board?
Yeah, she would want to report to the Department of Health. They have a process by which a complaint can be filed, and that complaint is then transferred over to the Board of Medical Examiners, who takes responsibility for investigating it. And it's an interesting thing she brought up. It's the repeat offenders, the recidivist doctors, if you will. They're the ones that give the vast majority of the other very good doctors, and most doctors are very good doctors, gives them a bad name, because it's these people who consistently, for whatever reason, they stay in practice and they keep messing up people over and over and over again. And sometimes, like in this case, they get away with it because the patient makes a recovery or the patient's not injured that bad. But then they're not so lucky the next time and someone gets killed or someone has a serious injury. And so in order to prevent this person from continuing to do that, you want to report them to the board and at least let the board investigate. And sometimes it may take 3, 4, 5 investigations before finally there's either public censure or some action taken against that doctor's license.
Yeah, so it's the Board of Medical Examiners, I guess, and it's something through the state that you can make contact if you call one of the state directories, and yeah, put in the complaint, and they can investigate those, and I guess they will accumulate. She may not be the only one, and then they can build it. But it does seem to me sometimes it's difficult to pull a license, be it from a lawyer, a doctor, or a dentist. It takes a while.
It is, and it may not be a situation where Tracy can report him and get his license taken away, but as you said, it may accumulate where the board reports him or censures him, and sometimes these guys will just leave state.
What does a censure mean anyway? I mean that's nice, they'll slap on the hand, but does the average patient that comes the next day even know about it?
It's a fancy word for a public report. In other words, patients have access to that order where the doctor was found guilty of dishonesty or negligence, patients can actually look that up and see it online.
I guess, and I just wonder how many of you actually do that. I have a doctor that I like very much, and I've never had any problem. There's never any indication that there was, but I've never checked on him. I just haven't. I mean, do people? Maybe you do. I haven't. I wouldn't even know where to start. I guess you can go online and maybe find out if they have complaints against them, right?
The Department of Health has a web page called the licensure web page, and when you look for that doctor's last name and specialty, that doctor's name will pop up, and then you can scroll down to the bottom of the screen and see whether or not they've had a violation order that's been published.
That's something I should have known. Now I do know. I've never checked it, but I think that's definitely worth checking.
I doubt you go to a doctor that's been
probably not, but you just never know. You never know. You never know. My doctor's a very good doctor, I think. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, more of your calls. The line's open. If you're on hold, Greg and others will get to you. 737-7587 questions for this man right here. Back after this.